All right, so we're diving into this really cool idea from Morgan Housel's The Psychology of Money.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's called The Power of Tails, and it might just totally change how you think about success.
Tails. I'm intrigued.
Right, so we're going to really break down, going deep into Chapter 6. Tails, you win. Housel says something pretty wild in there. He says you can be wrong half the time and still make a fortune.
Wow. Okay, now I really want to know more about these tails.
Me too. It's kind of mind-blowing, right?
So what are tails exactly?
Well, think about those things that just come out of nowhere and totally shake things up, like those black swan events. That's kind of what tails are all about.
Ah, okay, I see. Those rare, unpredictable events that can completely change the game.
Yep. It's not about being right all the time, but more about being ready for those crazy moments when they hit.
Okay, that's pretty interesting.
It reminds me of something Brad Pitt said when he won a Screen Actors Guild Award. He was talking about how in Hollywood, some projects work and some just totally bomb. Well, he basically said the key is to just keep moving forward. And I was like, wait, isn't that kind of like this tails idea? You got to accept that some things are just going to flop, especially in those fields where, one big event can make or break you.
You're right. That's a great connection. You have to be comfortable with the fact that you won't always be right, especially in fields driven by those unpredictable tail events.
It's like you're surfing. You got to ride the wave,
Right. You can't control the waves, but you can learn to surf them.
That's a great way to put it. So you're saying it's not about being a fortune teller. It's more about understanding that these events exist and being ready for them when they happen.
Exactly.
I'm starting to get it. But where do we actually see this in action?
Well, Housel uses a really interesting example, art collecting.
Oh, okay.
He talks about Heinz Berggruen, this guy who built an incredible art collection over decades. We're talking tons of Picasso and Matisse.
Whoa, that's impressive. What happened to it?
Well, he eventually sold part of it for over $1 billion.
$1 billion. Now, that's a tail event I wouldn't mind.
Right.
But even with a collection that valuable, I'm guessing not every single piece was a winner.
You're right. Even the best art collectors make mistakes. Some pieces might be duds or even fakes. But the point is, a few masterpieces can make the entire collection incredibly valuable.
So it's those few tail events, those masterpieces that really drive the value. It's not necessarily about the average quality of all the pieces.
Exactly.
It's kind of like in the stock market, right? Those unexpected surges that make your portfolio skyrocket.
You got it. It's not about always being right. It's about holding on long enough for those exceptional pieces, those tails, to totally change the outcome.
And this connects back to those long-term investing strategies we always hear about.
Exactly. Think about it. Would you rather try to perfectly time the market? Or would you rather just ride the wave knowing that eventually a few big wins are going to overshadow any minor dips?
Makes sense. But let's be real. Art collecting feels a bit, exclusive. Does this tails idea apply to something a bit more, accessible?
Of course. It applies to a bunch of areas, even ones you wouldn't expect. Let's take venture capital, for instance.
Okay, venture capital. What about it?
Well, between 2004 and 2014, 65% of investments made by Correlation Ventures actually lost money.
Wait, 65%? That's a terrifying number. I don't think I could handle that kind of risk.
It does sound pretty rough, right? But when you see it through the lens of tails, it kind of starts to make more sense.
How so?
Well, the small percentage of investments that return 10x, 20x, or even more, those are the ones that carry the whole portfolio, you know what I mean? They make up for all the losses and then some.
Okay. So even though most ventures might fail, those few extreme successes are what drive the returns. Just like those masterpieces in an art collection.
Exactly.
So it's about finding those hidden gems that make the whole thing worthwhile.
You got it. And here's something else that's pretty interesting. The stock market, which we usually think of as this super stable thing, well, it actually operates with this tails concept too.
No way, really.
Yeah. JP Morgan Asset Management actually did some research and found that between 1980 and 2014, a whopping 40% of companies listed on the Russell 3000, it's a broad U.S. stock market index, lost at least 70% of their value and never recovered.
Hold on, 40%. So even though the stock market seems reliable overall, there's still a big chance individual companies could totally crash and burn.
That's right.
Wow, that's kind of a wake-up call.
It really highlights the importance of diversification and understanding that even in a seemingly safe place like the stock market, tails can still pop up.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of like thinking you're sailing on calm seas and then suddenly, bam, a rogue wave hits you.
Exactly.
Do you have any examples of companies that experienced these massive tail events that led to their downfall?
Remember Carolco, the studio that produced Rambo and Terminator 2?
Oh, yeah. They were huge. What happened to them?
They were doing amazing for a while, but then by the mid-1990s, they went bankrupt. Their stock became worthless.
Wow.
It just shows you even super successful companies can be hit by those unexpected tail events and completely crash.
So it's not enough to be successful. You also have to be prepared for those unexpected pitfalls.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got these companies that tanked because of tails. What about companies that saw massive success because of them?
Well, take Amazon, for instance. A lot of their huge growth in the S&P 500 can be traced back to a few key tail events, like the explosion of Amazon Web Services.
It's even for a giant like Amazon, those tails can really drive their success.
It's crazy, right? This concept seems to be everywhere, from art to movies to tech companies.
Yeah, it's pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah.
But I have to ask, it's one thing to talk about how this affects companies and investments, but what about us as individuals?
That's a great question.
Does this mean we're all just at the mercy of fate, just crossing our fingers and hoping for the best?
Not at all. It takes us to a really fascinating aspect of tails thinking.
Okay, I'm listening.
Think about Google and their hiring process. Their acceptance rate is something ridiculously low, like 0.2%.
Yeah, I've heard it's incredibly tough to get a job there.
Right. So they're basically betting that by finding these exceptionally talented people, these outliers on the bell curve, they'll increase their chances of success exponentially.
So they're not just looking for qualified people. They're looking for those rare individuals with the potential to make a huge impact.
Precisely. They're playing the odds, you could say, knowing that finding those exceptional people, those tails, will pay off in the long run.
I see. So it's not just about luck. It's about putting yourself in a position to benefit from those tails when they show up.
Exactly. And this same logic applies to your own career and personal finances.
Okay, so this is all incredibly fascinating, but how do we actually translate this tails thinking into action? How do we make it work for us?
Well, that's a topic for our next segment. Stay tuned. We'll unpack how you can harness the power of tails to potentially boost your own success.
Can't wait. Welcome back. We've seen how these tail events, those super rare and unpredictable moments, can really shape success in a ton of different areas.
Yeah.
But just knowing they're out there is one thing, right?
Yeah, it's like having a treasure map. It's useless unless you know how to use it.
Exactly. So how do we actually use this tails knowledge? How do we find the X marks the spot for tails in our own lives?
That's the big question, isn't it? It's about adopting a whole new way of thinking and making decisions.
So it's not about predicting the future, but about being ready to ride the wave when it comes.
Exactly. It's about understanding that the world is inherently uncertain and then figuring out how to actually benefit from those big, crazy events when they happen.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do we actually do that? What's the secret sauce? How do we harness this tails power?
Well, think about it like this. First, you got to embrace calculated risks. Tails thinking is all about understanding that big wins usually involve some level of risk, right?
Right. But that doesn't mean just throwing caution to the wind, right?
Of course not. It's not about being reckless. It's about being willing to step outside your comfort zone and go after those opportunities with huge potential upsides, even if there's a chance they might not work out.
I see. So it's about being brave enough to go after the things that could really make a difference, even if there's a chance you might fail.
You got it. You have to accept that setbacks are often just part of the journey toward those big tailwinds.
Okay, so take calculated risks. Got it. What else?
Second, diversify your bets. It's just like in investing. Spreading your risk across different things can help you ride out the market ups and downs.
Right. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. And in life, diversifying your experiences, skills, and even your network can increase your chances of running into those tail events that can really push you forward.
So it's like try different things, learn new skills, meet different people, and you never know which one of those might open the door to something amazing.
Right.
Right.
You got it. The more diverse your portfolio of experiences, the more opportunities you'll have to stumble upon those unexpected life-changing moments.
I like that. The portfolio of experiences.
Right. It's like planting a bunch of different seeds. Some might not grow, but the ones that do could blossom into something truly special.
Okay. So calculated risks and diversify your bets. Got it. What else?
And this is maybe the most important one. You got to be patient. Play the long game. Remember that art collector, Heinz Berggruen?
Yeah. The billionaire?
Right. Well, he didn't become a billionaire overnight.
Yeah.
It took decades of consistently collecting arts, some of which was probably worthless, and then waiting for those few masterpieces to explode in value.
Ah, so it's about having the discipline to stick with something even if you're not seeing immediate results. Knowing that the payoff down the road could be massive. Kind of like those people who invested in Bitcoin years ago and everyone thought they were crazy.
Exactly. Success often takes time. Those tail events might not happen right away. But if you're patient, persistent, and open to opportunities, you increase your chances of being in the right place at the right time when they do happen.
I like it. These principles make a lot of sense, but they also seem a bit, well, general. How do we know when to take a risk, how much to diversify, how long to be patient? There's still a lot of uncertainty, right?
You're absolutely right. Tails thinking isn't about following some rigid set of rules. It's about developing a way to evaluate opportunities and make decisions in a world that's full of uncertainty.
So create a framework that works for you.
Exactly. And here's how you can do that.
Oh, let's hear it.
The first step is defining your personal tails. What are those rare, super impactful events that could really make a difference in your chosen field?
So it's about understanding the landscape of your field and figuring out which events could really launch you forward. Like for a musician, it might be landing a record deal or having a song go viral.
You got it. For an entrepreneur, maybe it's securing funding from a big investor or launching a product that becomes a huge hit. It's all about identifying those specific tail events that have the potential to change everything for you.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So once you've identified your personal tails, what next?
Next, figure out the probability and potential impact of those tails. How likely are they to happen? And if they do happen, how big could the payoff be?
So it's like doing your research, weighing the potential rewards against the risks. Sort of like a cost-benefit analysis for your dreams.
You got it. Not all tail events are created equal. Some might be super rare but have the potential to change your life overnight. Others might be more common, but the rewards are smaller. You need to figure out how likely and how impactful each one is.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like figuring out which lottery ticket has the best odds, even if you know the chances of winning are still slim.
Right.
So what's the final step?
Once you've figured out your tails and how likely and impactful they are, the final piece is to develop a strategy to increase your exposure to them.
So even if you can't predict when these tail events will happen, you can actively put yourself in a position to benefit from them when they do.
Exactly. This might mean networking with the right people, learning certain skills, building your online presence, or just being open to new experiences and opportunities. The point is to be intentional. Create the conditions that will increase your chances of bumping into those rare, transformative moments.
I see. It's not just about hoping for a lucky break. It's about actively trying to shape your own destiny.
That's the beauty of tails thinking. It empowers you to make decisions that increase your chances of achieving those big wins, even in a world full of uncertainty.
This is all really insightful. But there must be some downsides to this approach, right? It almost seems too good to be true.
You're right. Like with any approach, there are potential challenges and pitfalls you should be aware of.
Okay, let's hear about those. What are some things we should keep in mind when embracing this tails mindset?
One of the biggest things is, well, the emotional roller coaster that can come with it. Tails thinking means accepting that setbacks are just part of the process. But that doesn't mean they're easy to deal with, you know?
It's like knowing you're going to fall off the bike a few times before you learn to ride. But that doesn't make the scrapes and bruises any less painful. So how do you deal with those setbacks?
You got to develop resilience. You need to understand that the path to success is almost never a straight line. There will be bumps. The key is to learn from your mistakes, develop ways to cope, and just keep moving forward.
Makes sense. So be ready for the ups and downs, accept that learning is part of the journey, and don't let those setbacks stop you.
What else? Another potential problem is falling into the survivor bias trap. It's easy to focus on the big wins of successful people and forget about all the failures and rejections they went through to get there.
It's like watching a highlight reel of someone's life. You see the amazing accomplishments, but not all the hard work and sacrifice it took to get there.
Exactly. We often only see the tip of the iceberg, so it's crucial to remember that even the most successful people have had their share of challenges. It's not always just about talent or luck. It's about persistence and learning from failures, too.
That's a good reminder.
And another risk is overconfidence. You start seeing some success, and it's easy to think you've got it all figured out.
Yeah. Don't let a few wins go to your head.
Right. Remember, tails thinking is about embracing uncertainty, not trying to eliminate it.
Got it. Stay humble, stay hungry, keep learning.
Exactly. Even the most successful people can have setbacks. The key is to stay adaptable, keep learning, and never stop growing.
So, as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, what are the key takeaways about the tails concept and how to apply it?
Here are some key things to remember. First, tails are everywhere, not just for CEOs and celebrities, but for all of us. They're in our careers, finances, relationships, even creative pursuits. Second, tails thinking is a mindset. It's a way of looking at the world and understanding that these rare events can have a huge impact. It's about understanding the role of chance and uncertainty in our lives.
Makes sense.
And third, you can't control when those tail events will happen, but you can increase your exposure to them. Take calculated risks, diversify your experiences, be patient, and you put yourself in a better position to benefit when those opportunities come along.
Powerful stuff. So while we can't predict the future or guarantee success, understanding and embracing the power of tails can give us an edge in a world full of uncertainty.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that while some things are out of our control, there are steps we can take to increase our chances of benefiting from those moments that can change everything.
I'm feeling pretty inspired to embrace this tails mindset in my own life. It's a good reminder that we have more control than we think. And even though we can't predict the future, we can try to create the conditions for those tail events to happen.
And that's what it's all about.
Now that we've really explored this concept of tails and how to potentially use it to our advantage, let's shift gears in our final segment. So we've covered what tails are, how they're everywhere, and how to start thinking about them in our own lives. But you know what's always inspiring?
What's that?
A good story. So let's look at some real-life examples of people who've used tails thinking to achieve incredible things. People who understood that success isn't always a straight line, and sometimes it's those unpredictable moments that really make all the difference.
I like it. Who do you have in mind?
Well, let's start with a classic, someone everyone knows, Walt Disney. His journey is a perfect example of how embracing tails thinking can lead to incredible success, even when things get tough.
Okay, Walt Disney. Everyone knows Mickey Mouse in Disneyland, but I bet there's more to it, right?
Oh, way more. A lot of people don't realize that before Snow White became a huge hit, he faced a ton of setbacks.
Like what?
His first animation studio, it went bankrupt. A lot of his early films were flops. And he was constantly getting rejected by investors.
Oh, wow. So even Walt Disney had to deal with rejection and failure.
It's encouraging, right? Even the greats had challenges.
Absolutely. So how does the tails mindset come into play here?
Well, despite all those setbacks, Disney never gave up on his vision. He kept experimenting, kept pushing the boundaries of animation, and then, bam, Snow White happened.
Ah, so that one movie, Snow White, that was the tail event that changed everything.
Exactly. It was this massive success. And it totally changed everything for Disney Studios. It wasn't just a successful movie. It launched a whole new style of animation. It proved people wanted feature-length cartoons. And it basically paved the way for the whole Disney empire we know today.
That's a great example of how one big win, that tail event, can make up for all those previous failures, even change a whole industry.
It's a good reminder to keep pushing forward, even when things are tough, because you never know when that big break is going to come.
Absolutely. And speaking of pushing forward, let's talk about J.K. Rowling.
Oh, J.K. Rowling, the author of Harry Potter.
The one and only. Her story is another great example of tails thinking in action.
I think a lot of people can relate to her story. Didn't Harry Potter get rejected by a bunch of publishers before it was finally published?
A ton of rejections. She went through financial struggles, self-doubt, the whole 9 yards. But she never stopped believing in her story. That's the important part.
So even with all the rejection, she kept writing and refining her work.
Yep, that's dedication right there. She understood that the publishing world is full of tales. Most books don't become bestsellers. But those that do, they can have a huge impact. And she focused on crafting a story that resonated with her. And when Harry Potter finally found its audience, boom, it became this global phenomenon.
It's crazy to think about how one book can touch so many people around the world. That really is the power of tales.
It really is. Now, let's jump over to the world of venture capital. Have you heard of Chris Sacca?
Yeah, I think so. He was an early investor in Twitter, Uber, Instagram, right?
That's him. He's a great example of how to apply tails thinking in an area where failure is pretty much expected.
He's one of those investors who just seems to have a knack for picking winners.
Well, it's more than just luck. He understood that in the startup world, most companies fail. That's just how it goes. But he also knew that the companies that do succeed, the ones that become the next Google or Amazon, could generate these massive returns.
So his strategy was to invest in a whole bunch of companies, knowing most wouldn't work out, but the ones that did would more than make up for the losses.
You got it. He was okay with a high failure rate because he understood those tails, right? He knew that by spreading his bets and focusing on the potential of those few companies that could really take off, he could outperform everyone else.
It takes a lot of guts to stick with that when so many of your investments are failing.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And his success really proves the power of understanding tails and applying that thinking to your strategy.
I'm loving these examples. It's amazing how tails thinking can lead to such awesome things in so many different fields. But how can we apply this to our everyday lives?
Great question. And the good news is you don't have to be a celebrity or a CEO to use this. It's a mindset anyone can adopt, no matter what you do or what your goals are.
Okay, so how can everyday people like me use tails thinking?
Think about your career. Instead of just trying to climb the ladder at your current job, what if you explored some side hustles, learned new skills that could be useful down the road, or networked with people in different industries?
So be open to possibilities and just see where things lead. You never know. Something could grow into something amazing.
Exactly. Or think about your relationships. What if you went to different events, joined clubs, volunteered for causes you're passionate about? You might meet someone who becomes a close friend, a mentor, or even a business partner.
It's about putting yourself out there, right?
Right.
Creating opportunities for those chance encounters that could really make your life richer.
Precisely. And this applies to creative things too. What if you finally wrote that novel you've always wanted to write? Or started a blog, learned a new instrument, or took up painting?
I love that. Embrace your passions and see where they take you. Who knows? One of those things could become something truly special.
That's the spirit. Tails thinking isn't just about making huge, life-changing decisions. It's about being open, curious, and willing to try new things. It's about recognizing that even small moments of inspiration, connection, or chance can have a huge impact on our lives.
This has been so eye-opening. I feel inspired to really embrace this tails mindset. It's a great reminder that we have more power than we think. And even if we can't predict the future, we can try to create the conditions for those tail events to happen.
That's what it's all about.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all this with us today. It's been a fantastic deep dive into tails. And to all our listeners out there, we hope this has gotten you thinking about the tails in your own lives. You never know what amazing adventures are out there waiting for you. So keep exploring, keep learning, and keep an eye out for those tails.
Absolutely.
And until next time, happy deep diving.